Friday night took care of my weekday blues. I woke up, had breakfast, and read the news. I'm feeling relaxed, refreshed, and renewed. But I feel like there's something I'm forgetting to do.
Hey, Toby, the show's about to start.
Oh yeah, it's a Saturday show. 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 It's a Saturday show.
You know, Otto, this is my favorite time of year. I just love it.
Why is that, Toby?
Well, as we near the end of summer, football returns, people are going back to school, but I think my favorite part is the weather.
The weather?
Yeah, I just love it when it's warm during the day, nice and cool at night. It's the best. What about you, Otto? What's your favorite kind of weather?
Well, that's a tough question, Toby. You see, I'm an ectotherm, which means I can't regulate my own body temperature. So for me, it's not so much about weather, but about my surroundings. Like, if I feel too hot, I can go for a swim or sit in the shade. And if I'm too cold, I just sun myself on a log.
Well, I like to go for a swim too when it's too hot. See, we're not that different.
Tell me more about weather, Toby. Us turtles really only pay attention to what the weather is like on a given day.
Well, why don't we start by finding out what the word of the day is first? Kashi and Christopher?
Hi, Christopher.
Hello, Kashi. You look all bundled up.
Yeah, because today we're talking about weather.
We are talking about weather.
So I've got my winter hat and my scarf in case it's cold. Oh dear, it fell off. And I also got my umbrella in case it rains.
Well, Kashi, you're ready for all kinds of weather today, aren't you?
But I'm kind of noticing that it's kind of hot.
Yeah.
It seems to be a beautiful summer day. So I think I might not be keeping all this stuff on.
I think that's a good idea. So I think we should hit the word of the day on Lexi.
Yeah.
And see what's going on, and that'll give you time to change.
Oh, sounds good.
Perfect. Here we go. Well, Kashi, look what it is.
Huh.
Do you know what that says?
Well, I know that C's can be like a ka or a sa, so I don't know. I might let you do that one.
Well, this says Celsius. And Celsius is the kind of temperature scale that we often use. Sometimes we use Fahrenheit, but do you know what the temperature scale is in Celsius?
No.
0 degrees is freezing.
Ooh.
Yeah, and 100 degrees is boiling.
Celsius has different numbers?
That's right.
Oh my goodness.
Right. And Celsius is named after the Swedish scientist Anders Celsius.
Oh.
Well, listen, are you ready for the summer game code?
Oh, yes.
Okay, here it is. It's 7 letters.
Mm-hmm.
It's a type of cloud. It's one of my favorite types of cloud.
Oh.
And it's really puffy, like cotton. It's the classic cloud type. It's flat on bottom and poofy and fluffy on top.
Oh, nice.
And in Latin, I like to get a little Latin in there.
Oh, yeah.
It means a heap or a pile.
Okay.
If you think you know it, you can go to play.aadl for big points. Okay?
Okay.
All right. See you next time.
Okay, Toby, tell me more about weather.
Well, Otto, weather is the way that we describe the things that are happening in our atmosphere. Like, is it dry or wet? Is it calm or windy? Is it hot or cold? Is it cloudy or clear? But weather is really important for a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah? Like what?
Well, here's an example. You know how we've been gardening all summer long? Well, I check the weather to see if we have to water the vegetables that day.
What else?
Well, you might think this one is cool. When NASA launches things into space, they check the weather really carefully to make sure that they have a safe and successful launch.
Okay, but Toby, how do you know what the weather is going to be like?
I thought you'd never ask, buddy. Here, why don't we take a look at a few segments, and you and I can take a deeper look at the history of weather forecasting. I know how much you like history.
You got me there. Let's do it.
Ohio! Good morning, everyone. My name is Charlie, and I'm here to teach you some more words in Japanese. So this time, we're going to talk about weather. So first of all, since it's summertime, what kind of weather do you think about when you hear the word summer? Summer, for me, means warm days and clear blue skies with sun shining all around. So, to talk about how clear and sunny it is, in Japanese, you would say the weather is hare. So when it's hare, it's sunny. Sometimes things aren't so bright and sunny though. Sometimes clouds roll in and it gets a little dark and kind of gray outside. And in that case, you would say the weather is kumori. So that's kumori, cloudy. But then even more clouds come in and it gets darker and darker, and then rain starts pouring from the sky. And that rain, in Japanese, is called ame. So that's ame, rain. So, to review, the day starts off clear and sunny, or hare, but then some clouds roll in and it gets a little gray and cloudy. That's kumori. And then, bigger and darker clouds come in and start pouring rain, or ame.
Hi everyone, it's Lauren. Are you ready for a draw break? Today's draw break starts here in a cemetery. Sometimes cemeteries can seem like scary places. In cartoons or in horror movies, they're evil places where demons walk around or dead things come back to life. But that's all made up. In reality, cemeteries are peaceful places where we can go to remember loved ones who have died and also to learn about the people who lived in our area before we got here. Now, one great way to do that is through doing something called a gravestone rubbing. You'll need a crayon with the wrapper removed and a large sheet of paper. Once you arrive at a cemetery, take your time to look for an interesting grave. Maybe you'll find a grave that's very old, or one that has interesting letters. Try rubbing both raised and carved letters. Lay your paper flat against the grave with one hand. Then, with the other, hold a crayon along its long, flat side. Begin to gently rub in a slow, patient, back and forth motion. As you rub, you'll reveal not just the letters, but the texture of the stone. Try rubbing from different angles. Take your time. Be careful not to let your crayon slip off the paper and onto the bare stone.
Okay, that's a lot.
If you have time, do a few more grave rubbings. Once you're back home, use the rubbings to inspire you to make your own sign. You can copy the letter style, the layout, or use the letters directly. Have fun with this draw break.
Okay, Otto. So a long time ago in the ancient world, people attempted to predict the weather based on their observation of winds, the location of the stars and constellations, and the phases of the moon. The Greek philosopher Aristotle published a book called Meteorologica that used early science to describe certain weather phenomena. Although not everything he wrote ended up being correct. Weather forecasting really came into its own with the invention of the telegraph in 1835. See, weather is easier to predict if you can know what's happening in the next county over, the next state over, or on the other side of the country. So when people could send messages over long distances about the weather, forecasting became more reliable. Now, of course, there were other awesome inventions like the thermometer for telling temperatures, the hygrometer for telling barometric pressure, and radar for observing large atmospheric movements. But by far, my favorite has to be the almanac.
The almanac?
Yep, the almanac. Why don't we take a look at a couple more segments and I'll spin a yarn for you.
Hi everybody, welcome to my weather laboratory, also known as my backyard. Today we are going to do a science experiment right here. We are going to make a tornado in a jar, not out here. Now today it's a beautiful sunny day, not a cloud in sight, but I'm ready to make some weather. These are the things you need to make a tornado in a jar at your house. You will need a jar. You will need a lid that tightly fits your jar. Very important step. You will also need some dish soap. It can be clear or colored. And some vinegar, white vinegar. And I have a tablespoon to help measure that vinegar. All right, are you ready to mix some things together? Now we need to get our jar and fill it with water, and I already did that inside my house. Fill it up. You don't want to do it all the way. Leave yourself some room at the top so you can mix it together and not have it leak everywhere. Get your dish soap. A couple of big squirts. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4 big squirts because I have a very big jar. If your jar is smaller, you can use less. And then my vinegar. And I've got my tablespoon. I'll measure about 1 tablespoon. Put it in there. And then we are ready to get mixing. Now you want to get your lid and securely fasten it onto your jar. We don't want it leaking everywhere. This is also why I like doing messy experiments outside in my laboratory. All right, are you ready to spin? Now usually when we have a jar and we want to mix things up, we shake it like this. We don't want to do that. We want to shake it very smooth and very circular like so. All right, and then once we start mixing, we will find that a tornado will form in the center. It might take me a couple of tries to get it. Okay, you ready? We're gonna spin the jar. And when you spin the jar, it creates a vortex in the center. See that? It creates that vortex in the center. And as the water spins, centripetal force causes the water to spin around the vortex, making a tornado in a jar. Let's do it again. Pretty neat. And there we are. Thanks for watching.
Hi, my name is Lucy, and I'm here to share another Mercy Watson adventure with you because that pig just has no end to what she gets up to. So this one is called Mercy Watson to the Rescue, and it is by Kate DeCamillo, just like the other one. The illustrations are by Chris Van Dusen. So we will start with chapter 1 of Mercy Watson to the Rescue. Chapter 1. Mr. Watson and Mrs. Watson have a pig named Mercy. Each night they sing Mercy to sleep. Bright, bright is the morning sun, sing Mr. and Mrs. Watson. But brighter still is our darling one. Dark, dark is the coming night, but oh, our Mercy shines so bright. This song makes Mercy feel warm inside, as if she has just eaten hot toast with a great deal of butter on it. Mercy likes hot toast with a great deal of butter on it. But when Mr. and Mrs. Watson kiss her goodnight and turn off the light, Mercy's room becomes dark, very dark. And Mercy does not feel warm and buttery toasty inside anymore. She feels afraid. One night, after Mr. and Mrs. Watson sang their song about the sun, kissed Mercy goodnight, and turned off the light, Mercy decided something. She decided that she would be much happier if she wasn't sleeping alone. And so Mercy got out of her bed and went and got in bed with Mr. and Mrs. Watson. She snuggled up between them. Mercy felt warm inside, as if she had just eaten hot toast with a great deal of butter on it. Chapter 2. Mr. Watson and Mrs. Watson and Mercy were all in bed together. They were all dreaming. Mr. Watson was dreaming of driving a very fast car. Vroom, said Mr. Watson in his sleep. Vroom, vroom. Mrs. Watson was dreaming of buttering hot toast for Mercy. She buttered one piece and then another piece and then another. Have some more, dear, Mrs. Watson said in her sleep. Eat up. Yum, yum. Mercy was dreaming about hot buttered toast too. In Mercy's dream, hot buttered toast was piled high on her favorite blue plate, and Mrs. Watson was buttering still more. It was an excellent dream. Mr. Watson said, vroom, vroom. Mrs. Watson said, have some more, dear. Mercy snuffled and chewed in her sleep. Mr. Watson and Mrs. Watson and Mercy were all so busy sleeping that they did not hear the bed creak. They were all so busy dreaming that they did not hear the floor moan. Chapter 3. Boom! A hole opened under the Watsons' bed. Crack! The Watsons' bed fell into the hole. Mr. Watson woke up. Mrs. Watson woke up. Mercy woke up too. "What the?" said Mr. Watson. "Oink," said Mercy. "It's an earthquake," shouted Mrs. Watson. "It's the end of the world." "Nonsense," said Mr. Watson. But he did not sound very sure. He sounded frightened. Mercy, however, was not frightened. Mercy was hungry. "Oink," said Mercy again. She moved to the end of the bed. Boom! Crack! The bed fell a little farther into the hole in the floor. "Don't move," shouted Mr. Watson. "Whatever you do, don't move." Mr. Watson and Mrs. Watson and Mercy held very still. Mrs. Watson started to cry. "I know exactly what we must do," said Mr. Watson. "We must call the fire department. They will rescue us." "But you said we should not move," said Mrs. Watson. "How can we call the fire department if we cannot move?" Mercy recalled her lovely toast-filled dream. She wondered if there was any toast in the kitchen. While Mr. Watson and Mrs. Watson were arguing, Mercy hopped off the bed. Boom! Crack! "Look," said Mrs. Watson, "Mercy has escaped." "She's going to find help," said Mr. Watson. "She's going to alert the fire department." Mercy left the bedroom at a gallop. She was in a hurry. She was on her way to the kitchen. She was looking for some toast. And that is the end of chapter 3. So next time, starting with chapter 4, we will see what the Watsons do about the bed falling through the floor.
Today, we're going to talk about one of the most interesting, beautiful, and otherworldly natural phenomenon, auroras. In the Northern Hemisphere, they are called aurora borealis, or the Northern Lights, and in the Southern Hemisphere, they are called aurora australis, or the Southern Lights. They occur in high-latitude regions around the Arctic and Antarctic circles. The word aurora comes from the name of the Roman goddess of the dawn, Aurora, who traveled from east to west to announce the coming of the sun. The famous astronomer Galileo first coined the phrase in 1619. Auroras have been spotted in the night sky for centuries, including by the Greek explorer Pytheas in the 4th century BC. However, they are believed to have been quite rare before the 18th century. There are many legends around the world about the origin of aurora. The Finnish believed that the aurora were caused by the firefox, who ran so fast across the snow that his tail caused sparks to fly into the night sky. Estonians believed that the lights were a magnificent horse-drawn carriage, carrying guests to a spectacular celestial wedding. The Vikings are said to believe that the lights were the reflection of the Valkyries' armor and shields. Ancient Chinese legends claimed that the lights were a celestial battle between good and evil dragons who breathed fire. Aboriginal Australians saw the aurora australis frequently and believed they were fires in the spirit world. In North America, the Cree believed that the lights were the spirits of dearly departed friends and relatives trying to communicate with those left behind on Earth. And the Algonquins' take was that the lights were created by a fire built by their creator, and that this was the creator's way of telling his people that he remembered them and was watching over them. But what about the science? What is really happening here? Well, here's what we know. Sometimes solar activity ejects a cloud of gas from the surface of the sun. If one of these clouds of gas reaches Earth, it collides with the Earth's invisible magnetic field. When the two collide, it causes complex changes to happen, which generate currents of charged particles, which then flow along the lines of magnetic force into the polar regions. These particles are boosted in energy in Earth's upper atmosphere, and when they collide with oxygen and nitrogen atoms, they produce dazzling auroral light. Under the right conditions, aurora can even be seen from space. This photo was taken aboard the International Space Station. You can sometimes see the aurora borealis here in Michigan when you're up north, especially in the Upper Peninsula. Aurora are unpredictable, and you need a clear night sky in order to see them. The peak months to see the aurora borealis are August through April, and your best bet is to watch forecasts after 10 p.m. With these tips and a little luck, maybe one day you will be able to see the amazing and breathtaking sight of the aurora borealis.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
Alright, Otto, an almanac is an annual publication that contains information regarding the upcoming year. Information like when to plant your plants, when there'll be a full moon or an eclipse, and of course, they forecast the weather.
They forecast the whole year?
Yeah, and these almanacs have really old roots. Some of the first almanacs in America were Poor Richard's Almanac, which was published by none other than Ben Franklin, and the Old Farmer's Almanac, which has been continually published since 1792. But my favorite almanac is the Sumerian Farmer's Almanac. Here, check this out.
The Sumerian Farmer's Almanac is the oldest farmer's almanac on record. It was created sometime between 1700 and 1500 BCE. The tablet was discovered in 1949 by a joint team of researchers from the University of Chicago and University of Pennsylvania. They found the tablet at the ancient Sumerian site Nippur in what is now Iraq. The tablet is small, 3 inches by 4.5 inches. It was written by a father for use by his son. It describes when to plow your field, when to plant your grain, and most importantly, when to water your crops. In a dry place like ancient Sumeria, where rain was not a guarantee, farmers relied on irrigation, which is a man-made water distribution system, to water their crops. Perhaps most interesting is that the person who wrote the instructions credits the Mesopotamian god Ninurta as the author. Ninurta was worshipped as the god of agriculture and farming, and Ninurta's father was none other than Enlil, the Mesopotamian god of wind, air, earth, and storms, which, as we've learned, are some of the main components of weather.
Well, thanks for joining us on today's show, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned some cool weather facts. And there's a couple of things that you can do at home. If you'd like more resources or information, you can go to aadl.org/The Saturday Show. And if you'd like to drop a line to one of us, you can write us an email at tss@aadl.org. Until then,
Stay cool.